the minhag for 3 hours between meat and milk in Britain, is that?
Oh, that's a great question.
An accepted minhag?
You know why it's a great question?
In England say?
It's a great question. I got a great answer. That's my definition of a great question. Waiting between meat and milk, right? So 3 hours is fascinating. You should know it really is fascinating because in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, you have it mentioned 1 hour and 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right. It's to do with the digestive tract. Where has the food got to? If it's got to the beginning, that's 1 hour. If it's got to the end, that's 6 hours. Right.
Oh, okay.
You know, your colon is a rather lengthy process, right? Where does the 3 hours come from? So I grew up in England, and everybody kept 3 hours, and I always thought the reason was, I thought everybody kept 3 hours. It's a Yekisha custom, but you know that in England, from Jews from Germany, but the original Ashkenazi Jews that came to England in the beginning of the 1900s came from Germany. And they established the shuls over there. United Synagogues is really built around Yeki customs. So I was always under the impression they keep 3 hours because it's like a compromise. You know, 1 hour is too short, 6 hours is too long. Got to have afternoon tea at some point over here, right? So we'll get to the Dutch in a minute. We'll get there in a minute. So they kept 3 hours, but it's not true. There's a tshuva from one of the early authorities who lived in the very northern France on the border of the French-German border, the border of the French-German border, and he says over there that during the winter, it gets a little bit complicated, but the amount of daylight in order to get halachic hours has to be divided by 12, which means in the winter hours are much shorter, and in the summer they're much longer. It's very rare that you've actually got days where each hour is 60 minutes long. In the winter, where this person lived, the shortest hours in the winter were 30 minutes long. Halachic hours, they were 30 minutes long. Now, if you take 30 minutes and you multiply it by 6, you end up with 3 hours.
Okay.
What they were doing was they were keeping 6 halachic hours at their shortest point.
Okay.
And that's where the 3 hours came from. Is it an accepted custom? Well, if you've got a background that's coming from the Yekim, right, or if that's the way that you've always been brought up, then for sure it's an accepted custom. If your custom is to keep 6 hours, then it's a problem to go down to 3. It's okay to go from 3 to 6. It's okay to become more stringent. It's a problem to become less stringent. There is a custom.
It's not my fault, Rabbi.
What if you haven't?
If you
haven't grown up observant?
If you haven't been brought up observant,
I get a better question. So what if you just started eating meat, and the first 2 weeks you did 3 hours, and then the third week you learned about the 6 hours?
Okay, that's great.
All right.
That's fine. So you can carry on.
Continue with the 3 hours?
No, you should carry on with the 6 hours.
Why?
Because
you never kept the 6 hours.
No, here. What's the idea? The idea is like this: for somebody who doesn't have a proper custom, a family custom, right? So the assumption is that you should be keeping the more stringent
6
hours, which is 6 hours, right? If somebody comes from a community, here, that's a difference over here. If you come from a community where the community keeps 3 hours,
Like Britain, for example.
well, you see, it's a problem now in Britain. I'll tell you why. Because there are definitely communities in Britain. I talk about individual communities, not the whole thing. It's not one homogeneous community, right? So you've got communities in Britain where the accepted norm, for example, in the United Synagogues, is to keep 3 hours.
Yeah.
There are many communities nowadays which have become a lot more stringent and they keep 6 hours. For example, I would imagine if you were to ask anybody in the JLE, so they'll tell you to keep 6 hours. That's my feeling. I'd be very surprised.
1 or 6.
Huh?
They said 1 or 6.
1 or 6. Where does the 1? I'm surprised at telling you 1 because where does the 1 come from? The 1 is the most lenient of all the possibilities.
That's what I started with.
Really, that's interesting. What? Just to make a break? Just to make a break between the two?
When I started keeping kosher, I did it by meal. So like, if I had I wouldn't have. I kind of if I had a meat meal, I just wouldn't have a dairy until the next meal, and then I started doing 1 hour. And then it's
interesting. In the Gemara, when the Gemara talks about all of this stuff, that's how the Gemara differentiates at the beginning between each meal. Bein suda lesuda, between each meal. How does that translate, right? So amongst Jews that come from Holland, Dutch Jews, but they have to have a Masorah, they have to have a tradition. This is what they do. They keep only 1 hour. Right? Now it's interesting. My wife has a cousin who got married to a boy. He's Israeli. They grew up in Bnei Brak, very very frum, but the parents are Dutch Yekis.
So he keeps the 1 hour.
And she said the first time that she went round there for Shabbos, so on Friday night they had a meal. She said it was rather odd. They didn't have dessert. They just finished the meal with the main course. They benched, and then they sat around talking for just a little bit. And then all of a sudden, they fold back the tablecloth, and there's another tablecloth underneath, and they start bringing out cups of tea and milk and dairy desserts. And she was horrified. She'd never seen it in her entire life. She'd never seen anything like this. I thought you people were Jewish. What's going on over here? Right? And you have to understand these people live in the heart of Bnei Brak. Right? This is like they're very, very frum, and yet that was their custom.
Wow.
The son, interestingly enough, the son didn't have the same custom as the parents because he'd gone off to yeshiva, and in the yeshivas it's a little bit, it's not accepted, and he'd taken upon himself to keep 6 hours instead of 1 hour. But Lamaisa, there is such a custom. It's interesting, right? It's an hour after.
Did they follow the minute, even though they lived a long time in Bnei Brak?
Yeah. They were part of a community. They were part of that of a Dutch Dutch community.
If you break minhag, are you technically breaking halacha? Because a woman that marries someone is allowed to take on her husband.
Oh, so what's the pshat over there? It's very interesting that when a woman gets married, she should take on the customs of her husband. If it's something which is considered to be a problem. So, for example, I have a friend, he's Sephardi and she's Ashkenazi, and when they got married, so in order to be able to eat what's called kitniot, right, on Pesach, she had to make a hatarat nadarim. She had to make a null. It's like what's the problem when you do a certain thing, when you behave in a certain way, it has a din of being like a neder. It's like an oath. Right. If somebody gets married and their custom is to keep 3 hours and their husband's custom is to keep 6 hours, so you don't have to make a hatarat nadarim. You just keep the 6 hours. If it's the other way around, so you would have to make hatarat nadarim because you're going from something which is more stringent to something which is less stringent.
Can't you just make hatarat nadarim on your own and go from like 6 to 3?
No, because you yourself can't do it unless there's an overriding reason why you're doing it. But now you're being a lazy bum. That's not considered to be enough of a reason.
During the winter I keep 3, during the summer I'll keep 6.
But Rabbi, the question still stands. If I haven't grown up with any custom and I've adopted the custom of 3, I think communities within my country,
I'm not sure.
I'm not asking for a halachic.
I'm not sure. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But
said it's okay.
But I'm not asking for a suck. I think it's okay. Hey, he said it's okay. Okay, get out of the mill, quick.
You got that on the camera.
Quick.
But what if he goes?
Personally, I think you should be keeping 12 hours actually, at least.
I can start with 3, right?
Yeah, but you never had a custom, right?
No, I didn't grow up
So
keeping
you're
kosher.
in the yeshiva, you got to go like,
No, but he's already started keeping kosher before he came to the yeshiva, which means if you started keeping.
So
that was quick. That was quick. Yeah, yesterday.
No, but I did. I started eating meat like a month, 2 or 3 weeks before I came to yeshiva. And it was like I did 3 hours.
Good timing. Good timing.
I know. All right.
I'm going to stick with 3 for the time being.
I think the best thing to do right now, I really do. I think you should hold on to the 3 hours for the moment, and when you feel that you're up to it and you're ready, then you can move on into the 6 hours. That's the more you'll find. Like I said, in the Kehillas in Golders Green, for example, with the exception presumably of Monks and Dunstan Road, I think you'll probably find that everybody is keeping 6 hours over there.
Probably keep 6.
Don't know. It's a yekka. That's a yekka.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the Yekish Ashur.
Oh, I just assumed because they might be more stringent.
No, so they're stringent with the Yekish customs.
Which shul is that?
Monks. It's a shul called
Golders
Monks.
Green.
Rabbi Monk. No, in Golders Green in London.
Oh, London.
In London.
Because the one I know, it's my boy,
Oh, that's a Kal Adasi Shurin in Washington Heights. Anyway, okay, we're going to stop over here, Mitzvah Hashem. That means, of course, you have to wait 6 hours before eating this apple.
I'm gonna ask you a question, Rabbi, not
Just to be stringent, right? You never know.
I was